Hi friends, this is Angelica. Welcome back to my channel. I am really excited to share today's project with you. We're going to be making our own solid print backgrounds with a very distressed look, and I'm pulling inspiration from one of my all-time favorite paper companies, Basic Gray. Now they do not make papers anymore, but I am every now and then able to get my hands on a full collection. So this is what their solid prints look like in their collections, just really distressed, grungy, and I am a sucker for this look. It is just everything to me. So this paper line is Infuse, and it came out in 2007, I think the summer of 2007. I did use this paper collection in my boys' scrapbook back in the day, and I'm actually going to pull it out just to show you one of the pages I made with this paper. This is my son and I, Maxwell. Maxwell is now 19. We were at Stone Mountain right outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And I used this huge floral print 12 by 12 for this layer. I just fussy cut it and added foam adhesive just to get those flowers dimensional. I even used a little bit of glossy accents on the flowers just to make them shine. This is another Basic Gray layout, this time using some Christmas paper. But let's get into this project. So I am going to take the inspiration from those distressed, solid color 12 by 12 papers, and I want to make my own distress papers. Now, obviously, I don't need those large pieces of paper, so I am using Canson XL watercolor paper, and I've cut them down to 4.5 by 6 inch panels. You can use any sort of mixed media paper for this, or watercolor paper. You just want to make sure that it is thick and heavy weight. I wouldn't recommend like a cotton paper to do this, just paper that's really inexpensive and really fun to get dirty. So Canson XL is one of my favorite papers to do my mixed media on. Scrapbook.com also has a fantastic mixed media paper. I mean, it is really heavyweight. So if you have that in your stock, that would be perfect for this project also. So what I'm doing right now is adding Distress Oxide inks to the panels, and I'm going to show all of the inks that I'm going to use on each panel. You can just do one color for each panel, but I wanted there to be a variety of colors from the same color family on each panel, so I have a nice selection to choose from because I'm going to be die cutting all of these panels. So I did a pink panel and then a red panel. I have a purple panel here. I am speeding up the blending process, but I am not trying to make a really even blend. I'm just putting ink down on the paper, and I'm doing it pretty quickly. This blue panel, since I was doing more like floral botanical colors for my first few panels, I decided to bring in kind of an off blue or a teal, just in case I can throw that in the floral bouquets that I'm going to be making. I did end up using the blue for letters, and it turned out so pretty. And then I have this green panel for the foliage. I did put a little bit of brown on the edge for the center of the yellow flowers we'll be die cutting. But here are all of the panels before we distress them. I have a nice rainbow to work with, and now we're going to start the distressing process. So I'm going to start with Tim Holtz Distress Crackle Paste. This is the translucent crackle paste, and I have a plastic spatula. I did put a small amount on my craft mat, so I'm not putting my spatula back into the jar since this is a really wet paste and it has like a mayonnaise almost consistency. It's pretty thin. It will activate the Distress Oxide inks, and it's going to pick those inks up really easily, so I do not want to put my spatula back into my jar. I'm also letting the spatula kind of dance around on the panel, so I'm not putting an even layer of this paste down on the panel, I am leaving some of the paper exposed, and I am putting some really thin layers down, a little bit thicker here and there, and whatever this translucent paste is going to sit on top of, when the paste dries, it's going to lock that color in. So I want most of the panel's color to be locked in under this paste, but I do want there to be a few open areas too, because that's where the next step comes into play. I did use a blow dryer. I didn't show this on screen, but I did use my blow dryer just to speed up the process of these panels drying. So I used the low setting on my blow dryer, and it also helped with the cracks a little bit. I would not recommend using a heat tool. It gets too hot. Once I had all the panels dried, I used a dome applicator, a foam dome applicator, to add Scorched Timber Distress ink. And I picked Distress ink for this part of the process because Distress ink is a bit more vibrant than the Oxide inks are, and it was just a lot easier to work with. I did start with an Oxide ink, but quickly moved over to the Distress ink. So I am just rubbing that ink all over the panels. The panels do have a shiny texture to them from the paste, but where that brown ink is laying down really thick, those are the exposed areas that have no paste on them. So I'm going to slow it down here and zoom in so you can see how the ink looks. And this is regular time, so I'm not spending a lot of time on my ink blending. I'm just making sure I'm getting that ink down on the whole panel, and I am using a bit more pressure than I would if I was just doing normal ink blending. Once I'm happy with the amount of ink that I've laid down, I'm going to use a wet washcloth and wipe away the excess ink, the ink that's sitting on top of the Crackle paste. The Crackle paste gives a non-porous texture to the panels, so you definitely want to wipe away that top layer of ink that's sitting on top of the Crackle paste. A lot of the ink's going to fall into the cracks, and those cracks are really fine lines, so it's hard to see on camera, but when you are looking at the panels in person, you definitely can see those little cracks, and they just give these panels so much character. You can use your panels for backgrounds for your projects. I'm actually using my panels to die cut just a huge variety of flowers, and I am using dies from scrapbook.com's Market Bloom Florals die set, and there's several different sizes of flowers and foliage to pick from. So I am just going to die cut a huge variety of flowers in the center of the flowers and leaves. So I did spend about an hour just die cutting. I had a podcast on, so time went by really quickly, but I die cut a whole bouquet of flowers, as you can see here. And just to, make the project a bit longer for myself, I decided, instead of just gluing the centers to the flowers, I added the centers with cut down thin foam squares, and this is a 1mm size foam squares. I don't like to get too crazy with my foam sizes. I usually stick to 1mm, which is just the slightest amount of dimension. I finished the flowers, and then I did a few layouts on 3 card panels. The first card panel where I have the word hi on, I've already attached the flowers to that panel, and again I used thin foam squares to attach the flowers so the panel has some dimension. I picked letters from scrapbook.com's Decorative alphabet set. There is a lowercase and an uppercase, so I used both of those sets to die cut mom and to die cut hi, and then I want to finish those sentiments, those words with sentiments. I'm starting with Joyful Wishes stamp set. They have really, really small sentiments in that set, and then I'm bringing in a larger sentiment here for the card where I'm not going to be using die cut words, and this one is from Hello Spring stamp set. I decided to heat emboss these sentiments instead of using my go-to black ink. I wanted these sentiments just to be a little softer than black ink. So I'm going to heat emboss them. I prepped my panel first with anti-static powder. I stamped it with Versamark ink, which is a sticky embossing ink. And now I am pouring Wow embossing powder, and this is platinum color, which is just a stunning, almost like a gold, but not yellow. It's just a beautiful color. One of my favorite non-white embossing powders I have in my collection. And it's super fine. So when I poured it over those really small font sentiments, the embossing powder melted just fine and didn't make those words messy because the letters are so small. Now I'm going to put the last two panels together, the flower bouquets. This first panel, I decided just to make a really pretty bouquet on, and then put a simple heat embossed sentiment in the middle of, or in the center of the panel. So this is how I build my bouquets. I start with the larger flowers and I build from the center out. So it did take me a little bit of time. I'm only showing a portion of this assembly on screen, and I just build one piece at a time. Sometimes I use glue, sometimes I use thin foam squares, but eventually I got to the end and I'm just going to glue that sentiment right onto the center. Now, since there are a few different dimensions to this panel, because I am using foam squares, I ended up just backing this sentiment with 110-pound Neenah Solar White, which is all the white paper I'm using, by the way, is Neenah Solar White 110-pound cardstock. But because I glued those little strips together, it just really made the sentiment super strong. So all I had to do was add some glue to the back of that sentiment, and then it just glued nicely and flat on top of the flowers. For the mom card, I am going to glue the letters first before adding the flowers. And I'm using my Make Art station to make sure that I am gluing those letters straight. So if you're not familiar with the Make Art station, this is a metal, I think it's 12 by 12 size. It comes with large magnets, so you can hold your panels down with the magnets. You're not using tape. It comes with a 0 center ruler, which is also a magnet, and that's what I'm using to make sure I am gluing my letters on straight and I have them spaced out appropriately. And I need to show more love to this tool because I use it quite often, but I don't use it a lot on screen. This is actually my second Make Art station. I wore my first one out because I ink blended so much on it. I actually blended some of those grid lines right off my board. So I gave that board to my daughter and got myself a new one. Now that the letters are on the card base, it's time to build this floral arrangement. So I had already done a quick practice round. I did take a picture of that arrangement with my phone, so I had a picture to refer back to when it was time to build this arrangement, so I wasn't spending a lot of time trying to move the flowers around. Once I had them in position, I glued one of those heat embossed sentiments under the word mom. And now we're going to look at all three panels. I still have a little bit of work to do with this last panel. So I did not finish off this panel in the bottom right corner. I wasn't sure if I wanted this panel to be a full floral background or if I wanted to leave that bottom corner empty for a sentiment. And I'm glad I did leave that corner empty. I usually do full die cut backgrounds and then just put a sentiment in the center of the card. But I wanted to try something a little different. And I love how this turned out. Actually, I love how all of these turned out. These flowers are so gorgeous, especially in person. They're so bright and they're shiny because they have the paste on top of the papers. They have a character to them because they just have those distressed marks throughout the flower petals and the leaves. Even the letters, these beautiful blue letters, have a little bit of grunginess to them too, and it just brings so much more character to these cards. I am in love. I did decide just to do one last step. I thought I was done, but there was a little bit of white space on the panels I wanted to close up. So instead of adding more flowers to the top two cards, I actually used Concord and Ninth enamel dots to fill in some of that blank space, that white space. And then for the mom card, I did put some enamel dots down on the panel. I decided I did not like them, so I pulled the dots off and just glued on a few more flowers. I had so much fun putting these panels together, inking them and distressing them. If you do have these supplies in your stash, I highly recommend pulling them out, getting your hands dirty. This is such a satisfying project. If you don't have these products and you want to give it a try, I will link everything down below. I link to scrapbook.com's shop. It's my favorite place to shop. That's where I personally shop. They will be affiliate links, so I do get a small commission, but that's at no cost to you. It just really helps out my channel, and I truly appreciate your support. That is all that I have for today. If you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll be back shortly with another video. So I'll see you then. Take care, friends.